And when we come back, I want to talk about this fraud, Jeff Flake. And we're inviting Jeff Flake on the show, where I'm sure he won't come on. But he ought to come on, Mr. Tough Guy. He ought to come on the show. I won't batter him around, even though it's quite easy to do. But I won't do a 60 Minutes interview like, it's so nice to have you here, Senator. Well, thank you. This must have been very, very difficult for you. Well, I had to hit the pause button. I'm here to save the country, you know. Country's being torn apart, and I'm here to save the country. And, Senator, as you save the country, why do you think you want to save the country? Because I was in the elevator with these two screaming people, and I said to myself, well, they make sense to me. Well, I want to thank you for saving the country. And by the way, you hate Trump, don't you? Yes, he's not presidential. I hate Trump. Well, thank you, again, for saving the country. 60 Minutes. They needed 12 seconds with this idiot. But let's take a look at Jeff Flake, shall we? Am I allowed to? Yes, I am. I'll be right back. Jeff Flake, the Susan Collins of Arizona, if you will. It's a great piece at Legal Insurrection, legalinsurrection.com. Flake wasn't pressured. He masterminded the Kavanaugh delay. According to a report published in Politico, Senator Jeff Flake chose to appear pressured when, in fact, he masterminded the latest Kavanaugh delay. His subsequent media statements about his motivations and his media appearances in light of this report suggest Flake's true motivations are far less pure than he would have us believe. Flake's focus on optics, on his raw ambition, probably for 2020, and on the kind of swamp creature political maneuvering surrounding this planned reversal paints for the American people a hideous and disturbing portrait of the Arizona senator. On Friday, Flake told The Atlantic, a left-wing publication and site, that he insisted on the 7th FBI investigation into Judge Brett Kavanaugh because he was trying to save two institutions, the Senate and the Supreme Court. Now imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. He's the Abraham Lincoln of our time. During this interview, he also explained that he was deeply moved by Chris Coons' pleas, that's the Democrat from Delaware, and decided that it was up to him, Jeff Flake, to bring a little unity, to stop our country from coming apart, quote unquote, a move that apparently brought Coons to tears. To follow up on his preening media tour, Flake showed up on 60 Minutes with Coons in tow. CBS is revealing parts of this interview. Well, you saw it. Or, if you're wise, you didn't. Well, here's part of the interview. In an interview with 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelling, that moron, airing, Senators Flake and Coons discussed what they thought of Kavanaugh's emotional testimony. Both senators were instrumental in delaying a floor vote on Kavanaugh's nomination for a week while the FBI conducts an investigation into claims against him. Coons said Kavanaugh's reaction to questions posed by Democratic Senators Dianne Feinstein and Amy Klobuchar about his drinking and behavior in high school went over the line. Are you kidding me? You're not allowed to push back against a senator who's accusing you of sexual acts and drinking and all. You're not allowed to push back. You see how thin-skinned they are, folks? He was clearly belligerent, aggressive, angry, and I thought there was a tough dynamic there, and I watched him. Part of me thought, this is a man who believes that he did nothing wrong, and he's completely unjustly accused, and he's being railroaded, and he's furious about it, said Coons. Coons added that Kavanaugh's more partisan responses, though, made him question his fitness for the bench. Let me just stop you there. So this idiot Flake, this is his buddy, Chris Coons of Delaware, who's out to destroy Kavanaugh. And he positions himself as Coons. You know, I really thought this was a good guy and so on, until he actually started pushing back. You don't get to do that. Don't you know we're United States senators? Yeah, I know. And I know you, clown, you still wear boxer shorts. You still take a crap like everybody else. We know who you are and what you are, you jerk. Oh, I'm the honorable. You're dishonorable. There were some lines, he said, that he delivered that were sharper, more partisan, more, this is the Clintons paying me back. This is a Democratic smear campaign that I was surprised. It is a He was surprised. The lawyers are left-wing, well-known activists, Democrats. Dr. Ford, other accuser, Avenatti. Oh, look at that. It can't be a Democrat. Whatever. Flake said he didn't like Kavanaugh's mention of the Clintons and whatnot, quote unquote, but added, I had to put myself in that spot. I think you give a little leeway there. Now, Flake's positioning of himself as some sort of unifying force whose sole mission is to save the Senate and the Supreme Court because he's driven by patriotic desires for national unity is unraveling. The plot to further stall the Kavanaugh nomination was hatched Thursday night in Senator Susan Collins' office. Isn't it nice, ladies and gentlemen, that she's been in the witness protection program? I suspect she's the maestro behind the whole damn thing. Anyway, also allegedly in attendance were Senators Lisa Murkowski and Joe Manchin. The four put their heads together and came up with a 7 IQ. No, I said that. The four put their heads together and realized that as only Flake serves on the Judiciary Committee, they couldn't pull off their devious plot without the assistance of another senator serving on the committee. They somehow landed on Senator Chris Coons, and as noted above, Flake has been putting him to good use as a political prop and general useful idiot. As the Politico report goes, in Susan Collins' third-floor office in the Capitol, she and her Republican colleagues Flake and Murkowski, joined by Joe Manchin, agreed they had the power to make or break Kavanaugh. And without settling on precise details, they decided to use their leverage to insist on a confirmation process that allowed them to reach a comfort level with Kavanaugh's situation, rather than to kill the Supreme Court nomination outright. What resulted on Friday afternoon threw Washington into chaos and guaranteed another week of uncertainty and suspense. I'm not done with this, ladies and gentlemen. You haven't heard about this. It's been in Politico. Legal Insurrection is promoting it. But I'm telling millions of you, what actually happened in the shadows is not what you're hearing at all over the damn weekend, despite 24/7. I'll be right back. Let me continue this, Mr. Producer. Susan Collins' third-floor office in the Capitol, she and her Republican colleagues, Jeff Flake and Murkowski, joined by Democrat Joe Manchin, agreed they had the power to make or break Kavanaugh. And without settling on precise details, they decided to use their leverage to insist on a process that would allow them to reach a comfort level with Kavanaugh's confirmation process and seek more information, rather than to kill his Supreme Court nomination outright. According to two people familiar with the meeting, that's two senators leaking. What resulted on Friday afternoon threw Washington into chaos and guaranteed another week of uncertainty and another week of character assassination, and one-way character assassination surrounding Kavanaugh's confirmation. Just hours after Flake endorsed Kavanaugh and seemed to put him on a path to the high court, the Arizonan said he first wanted a week-long FBI investigation into Ford's allegation that the judge assaulted her. It was a victory for Democrats who'd been demanding such a probe, to no avail. Promises to define the retiring Flake's legacy as someone who refused to let Kavanaugh get a vote while under a cloud of doubt. But the Flake-led rebellion, however long it lasts, had been building for nearly 2 weeks. Though Murkowski, Collins, and Manchin all endorsed the FBI investigation on Friday, Flake needed another partner to pull off his move because none of them serves on the Judiciary Committee. So Flake, who's been mocked for writing a book blasting the Trump presidency only to vote for his agenda, teamed up with a Democrat. Chris Coons spent 8 years Senate career making earnest attempts to build relationships with Republicans. I'm just reading it as is. At times to liberals' annoyance. He and Flake have taken trips around the world together. Ooh, I wonder what Rosie O'Donnell thinks about that as part of their duties. And on Friday afternoon, with the Supreme Court seat on the line, it all paid off. So Coons, who appears to be a hapless victim of Flake's skullduggery, writes Legal Insurrection, was then blindsided by Flake's announcement that he was insisting on a further delay in investigation. Politico continues. Coons and Flake vacated the Judiciary Committee shortly before the panel was expected to vote to advance Kavanaugh. Seemingly innocuous moment that left onlookers increasingly bewildered as more senators joined them in the back room. They returned minutes later with a deal that forced Republican leaders to bow to the minority's demand for an FBI probe, delaying the confirmation for as much as a week. I did not expect him to do this today, Coons said of Flake, speaking for nearly everyone in official Washington. So, Legal Insurrection points out Flake's plot doesn't stop there. It includes signaling to Senate Republicans that his intentions are not to bring down Kavanaugh. It's unclear how true that is. But here's Politico. It continues. In fact, Flake was playing a longer game. He said his statement supporting Kavanaugh was a signal to Republicans that he wasn't joining the Democratic resistance and would show he wasn't out to bring Kavanaugh's nomination down. I hoped that would help provide leverage, Flake recounted, but he needed some Democrats to endorse the FBI investigation, if not Kavanaugh's nomination, to get fellow Republicans to agree. Flake wanted to demonstrate that the process is fair, at least even if Democrats are not going to vote for Kavanaugh, he added. Flake wouldn't say whether the protesters played a role in his decision, but he acknowledged he was in the middle of a remarkable moment and ticked off his interactions with a lot of people on the phone, email, text, walking around the Capitol, you name it. Wonder if he spoke to the Duke lacrosse players. In his speech, little noticed at the time, Coons suggested that someone with a partisan agenda might have leaked to the media Ford's letter alleging the assault, harmonizing with what Republicans had been saying for days. Coons' speech also repeated his request for an FBI investigation. It was exactly what Flake was looking for. Not long afterward, Coons and Flake repaired to a committee anteroom to hash out an agreement. Democrats would endorse a one-week FBI investigation into Kavanaugh, and Flake would use his leverage in the narrowly divided Senate and threaten to vote no on the floor if Republicans refused to go along. Now, there's something somewhat disturbing revelation in the remaining Politico report. Quote, Collins asked, that's Susan Collins, that Kavanaugh's friend Mark Judge, whom Dr. Ford alleges was in the room during the alleged assault, sign a letter and send it to the committee rather than let his lawyer do it, according to two Republican senators. The letter was turned around in a matter of hours, and Murkowski had endorsed an FBI investigation days before, only to change her tune after meeting for more than a half hour privately with McConnell. Meanwhile, Flake, again with Coons in tow, was proclaimed a hero at Saturday's Global Citizens Festival and got his 60 Minutes interview. A one-term senator who has accomplished nothing but self-promotion and endless spitballs against the President of the United States, who couldn't get elected dog catcher in Arizona. That Jeff Flake. He, Susan Collins, Murkowski, are the Republicans who did this. And I want to say something to all three of them. If you three lousy, good-for-nothing, useless senators cost us the Supreme Court when we have Republican control of all the branches of government because that's what the people wanted to do, it is you, politically, who will be held to account for destroying these institutions and for turning them over to the left. I want the people of Maine to know, the people of Alaska to know, that when the primary season comes up, we will do everything in our power, even in these states where apparently there's a lot of liberals or a lot of cross-party voting, we will do everything in our power to challenge these women. Everything in our power to challenge Collins and Murkowski. And we do it for our children, we do it for our grandchildren, and we do it for our country. This isn't some damn game where a couple of senators from Maine and Alaska get to tell the country where to go. And in this case, they told us to go to hell. The media celebrate these people as the media celebrate all on the left, as the media cover for the left, because they are of the left. And when you have individuals like Collins and Murkowski and the rest of them doing what they do, then we need to do what we have to do in order to protect this republic. And I'm not kidding. This is a country we're going to be leaving to our kids and grandkids. And we cannot have a half-wit like Collins and a no-wit like Murkowski and a nitwit like Flake, the three of them, the three stooges of the Republican Party, determine the fate of this country. No way. Let's take Andrea, Los Angeles, California, the great KRLA. Go.
Hi, Mark. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
I listen to you all the time. I am so incensed with this whole Kavanaugh hearing and fallout and everything Flake did and everything else. I have to tell you, I worked for Obama's campaign as a volunteer. I worked on Clinton's. I met Clinton. I changed to the Republican Party. The Democrats sickened me. And
well, what was the event that seriously that caused you to change?
Everything that Obama did the last 4 years. I couldn't even vote when he was up for re-election. What he did in the Middle East, how he treated Netanyahu. I believe that he was an anti-Semite. I hate to say it.
I've said it many times, and I believe it.
Right, but the thing that bothers me the most is maybe Dr. Ford was actually molested.
I don't disagree with that.
Right, but I think that they, in my opinion, obviously, I think they softballed the questions. I didn't hear anything about her drinking. And in trying to do a little bit of my own research, because I have a research background, I found out she was a cheerleader in high school. And there was something on the web that talked about when the cheerleaders, quote unquote, got spirited enough, it was party time. So what I'm wondering is, just like any other teenager, she might have had so much to drink, she didn't know who.
Well, here's what I do know. Did anybody ask that question?
Exactly. That was my point.
Did they ask those questions about Kavanaugh? Yes. Did they ask those questions about her? No.
Exactly. And
this is why she and her lawyers do never, ever want to see the inside of a courtroom.
Right. But the other thing that I wanted to mention, there are two other things. Do I have time? I've been waiting a long time.
Give it a shot.
Okay. Flake, you might have covered this because I turned my radio off so I wouldn't interfere with anything. I know you talked a lot about Flake, but there was a comment I read on Fox.com where Flake said that if he was running for re-election, he would never have called for the FBI investigation because he said, if I hope I'm quoting correctly, he said there'd be no value and no incentive. I could not believe I read that.
The guy's a chameleon. He's been a chameleon his entire political life, certainly while he's been in the Senate. Absolute chameleon. Everyone knows it, but because he bashes Trump, because he can't win re-election in Arizona, he does this drama thing, which was connived with Susan Collins and Murkowski and Manchin behind the scenes, and none of them have called for any of these accusers to go to the Montgomery County Police Department. We need an FBI investigation, which is not a criminal investigation. Andrea, thank you for your call.